everyone. We're here from the Azure IoT Central team. I'll kick it off. I'm Sean Parham. I'm a Principal Product Manager Lead for the IoT Central team.
I'm Ranga Wadlamudi. I'm a Principal Product Manager for Azure IoT Central team.
And I'm Ian Hoyer. I'm a software engineer on IoT Central.
And today we're covering Industrial IoT and Azure IoT Central. We'll be spending some time talking about the strategy of how it is we're doing that. We'll talk about our recently shipped and coming soon product features. We'll give some demonstrations of those features. We'll talk about Microsoft first party and as well as our partner connectivity solutions and give demonstrations of those as well. So to kick things off, we're going to talk about how to create, deploy, manage, and operate industrial solutions at scale with Azure IoT Central. IoT Central is a fully managed application platform as a service, or APaaS, for IoT solution development. It's built on top of our other managed PaaS services, such as IoT Hub, DPS, and Stream Analytics, in such a way that provides high availability, disaster recovery, elastic scale, and fast, secure deployment into regions around the world. IoT Central is a multi-tenant platform, which means that solution developers can build applications once, then deploy and operate them for multiple customers. We'll get into the specific features in a future slide, but essentially, Azure IoT Central allows solution developers to quickly collect and connect data from on-site equipment, model and organize that data, and integrate it into other applications. Azure IoT Central is part of a rich and growing partner ecosystem, which includes industrial assets, control systems, and machines that can directly connect, as well as integrate with industrial partner gateways such as CloudRAIL, Ignition, Omnio, and others. Those gateways can operate independently or build on and integrate with Azure IoT Edge and Defender for IoT. Azure IoT Central has a powerful API and data pipeline capability that allows it to integrate into various first and third-party applications and data platforms to produce and use business insights such as OEE, asset utilization, and predictive maintenance, and allow those applications to control and make changes to industrial assets and gateways on premises.
So we are taking a four-pronged approach here. The way we want to bring in customers to be able to integrate into Azure IoT Central is to first simplify the journey of onboarding assets and being able to listen to signals in the cloud by simplifying the journey of the assets coming into Azure IoT Central with enriching our product features around industrial. The next thing we would want to focus in on is how do we bring that solution to an industrial scale. We already have customers who are using industrial scenarios within Azure IoT Central, and we continue to keep pushing the boundaries of what scale means for us with industrial and bringing on the assets to connect into the cloud. The next strategy is to be able to meet where the customer is with already installed partner connectivity solutions on-prem, and how do we work with our partners to be able to build connectors into Azure IoT Central. And then the fourth strategy is we have solutions, the first-party solutions provided by Microsoft, the connectivity solutions which can connect into the assets and send data into the cloud, and also work with our partner solutions together to be able to meet our customer needs. So overall, that's the strategy we are following to be able to bring our industrial customers into the cloud. And also I want to call out is IoT Central is a GA product, so we already have a lot of features existing which apply to the industrial scenarios, like being able to connect those assets into the cloud and model the data or the telemetry which is coming in, do device management by using jobs, where you're able to do command and control from the cloud into the on-prem solutions. Also, we have dashboard capabilities where you're able to show KPIs, draw line charts, etc., for your users to be able to see the telemetry flowing into the cloud in real time. And there are a bunch of other features which are already existing, and I'll talk about some of them through our demos. So I'll call out a few things which recently shipped and are coming soon features which are really applicable for industrial IoT. So some of the features here are private link VNET, which helps to securely connect industrial assets into the cloud, into Azure IoT Central. And all these features which I talk about are shipped and are in GA, general availability across the Azure IoT Central regions across the world. Organizations is another feature where you can create boundaries around industrial assets access. So, for example, if you have a facility A with the users who are watching the machines and who are working with the assets, versus facility B, who you have other personnel who are taking care of the assets. So you can create boundaries around facility A versus facility B, where access to those assets are controlled, and you put boundaries to make sure that you're not giving access to personnel who are not supposed to see those assets in the cloud. Data aliasing and contextualization is another feature we recently shipped, which helps you basically contextualize all the acquired data from the assets into the cloud and create actionable information based on how you want to alias the data to make it meaningful for your users. Then there is data transformation. We have added features where the acquired data into the cloud, you can make it actionable by enabling scenarios like OEE, where you're transforming the data within Azure IoT Central and sending it off to a data estate like Azure Data Explorer and enabling OEE on top of the data which is being stored. The other features include we have enabled new Azure regions, US, South Central, and Canada regions to support our industrial customers in those regions. The ADX destination is another feature where we have direct connectivity from IoT Central into ADX, where you can create a destination and start exporting your data, both by directly sending it into ADX or by transforming using our transform features and enabling rich user scenarios like OEE. Similarly, we have improved dashboarding and search capabilities for you to be able to create those KPIs, create those line charts, and also search for assets within IoT Central across your facilities. And we have an API surface where you can use to automate any of your functionality outside of IoT Central so that you're able to integrate into your other enterprise systems to enable IoT and bring focus into your enterprise systems through APIs. Some of the features which are coming soon, which are applicable for industrial, are the Microsoft IoT for Defender. What it does is it gives you that comprehensive threat detection for OT environments, where you're able to run these agents on the device side, and you get alerts and recommendations into the cloud, and you're able to take actions for those alerts and recommendations. AAD security groups is another feature which basically brings in easy onboarding of your users and assigning roles to them so they're able to access features of Azure IoT Central as well as view the assets which have connected into the cloud. And audit logs is another feature which gives you overall logging facility as far as what changes are happening within IoT Central if a user is changing another user's role, etc. So all the audit comes into play. I just want to focus on private link VNET here, which was one of the features which was shipped for GA. And if you look at it, what we are doing is we are creating that secure channel for your assets, which are like industrial facilities, etc., which are connecting into the cloud. And what that does for you is it basically helps you create that private endpoint and that private channel for your assets to be able to send telemetry into the cloud. And that ingress kind of secure channel is currently available for you. And also what you can do is once you have your users using the features of IoT Central and you want to send your data out into your data estate or any of the other Azure services like Event Hub, you can create a private link from IoT Central into those other Azure services and make that also a secure private link as data is flowing from IoT Central into those other Azure services. Now I'll jump into some demos of some of the features I talked about. So let me go and present an IoT Central application and we'll talk about the features. So here is a IoT Central application where I'm going to talk about Parnell Aerospace. It's a fictitious company which has factories and production lines in different cities. And some of the features I wanted to showcase is, let's jump to the permissions section where I've created some organizations. So here, what you can do is you can create a hierarchy of your org. So for this company, there are facilities in different cities. So I've created organizations within for each one of those cities. And when you go to the assets section, I have a bolt maker asset, which is basically installed in different cities, and there are a bunch of them connecting into the cloud. So what I've done is, based on the where the asset is located, I've created an organization and put boundaries around that city. And if you look at it, there's the Austin bolt maker, which is belongs to organization Austin. A Portland one belongs to Portland, etc. So what this does is, once you create these boundaries and you onboard users to be able to only belong to Austin, users belonging to Austin will only see the Austin bolt maker. Portland employee will only see a Portland bolt maker, etc. So that's where the whole feature of organizations come into play, where you are able to onboard users and make sure that they have the correct access to work with the assets in the cloud. The next thing I'm going to talk about is data transformation. So we go to data export, where I've created a destination to ADX, which is the Azure Data Explorer. And I'll jump into the Bolt telemetry. And here we have enabled something called data transformation, where it's a feature where you select your device template and you can write queries with JQ. And you can transform your data, you can flatten out your data, however you want to do take that data which is coming from the facilities and store it in ADX. And once you have stored it in ADX, we have enabled other features, like you can go to dashboards and there is a embedded link feature where you can bring in Azure Data Explorer dashboards. So here is an example where I'm showing OEE being calculated for each of the plants. So it is being done real time right now, and you can switch to another production line and it calculates OEE here. So what we are really doing here is, as the data flows from the equipment into IoT Central and you pass it on to ADX, you can use the features of ADX with Kusto queries and write some complex queries to be able to do calculations. And here is an example of how it's taking some of the attributes of quality, availability, and performance, and calculate OEE and show it to the users. So this is an example of how you can take Azure IoT Central and another service like Azure Data Explorer and be able to just bring those two together and enable scenarios like OEE for industrial. And not only the embedding feature, what you can do is you can actually take the data which is flowing in and you can see how data is flowing in within IoT Central. You can see the JSON data which is flowing in and start to really analyze what you want to do with the data. And within IoT Central, you can create dashboards to be able to look at KPIs, look through time series with line charts, etc. So I've shown you two ways of how you can enable your operator with capabilities within IoT Central, but also being able to work with direct connectivity with ADX and bring in like OEE dashboards within IoT Central. I'll next go into connectivity solutions. So we'll talk about from our four-pronged strategy, a couple of things here. One is the Microsoft connectivity solutions and also the partner connectivity solution, and how do we integrate industrial assets into the cloud. So if you look at this picture, a little variation from what Sean talked about before. On the left-hand side, we have the data acquisition kind of solutions using OPC UA, Modbus, etc. And then how do you connect into IoT Central? We have solutions in the marketplace provided by Microsoft with the OPC publisher or with partner solutions from Copa Data, Softing, Kepware, Matricon, etc. And also we have direct connectivity from the third-party solution provided by our partners like CloudRAIL, Ignition, and Omnio. And how do you connect into IoT Central? So they've built these connectors so that there is that seamless overall simplifying the journey of connectivity from on-prem into the cloud. So that's where we are going to focus on, and Ian will come in a little later and demo some of these partner solutions and how can you actually simplify your journey on bringing these solutions and connecting into IoT Central. Again, if you look at it, it's the same picture with the focus on what are the three types of connectivity into IoT Central. So the first one is you take the partner solutions which are available in the marketplace, which you can run on Azure IoT Edge. So Copa Data, Softing, Kepware, Matricon, SIA have taken their solutions, containerized them, and made them available in the marketplace where you can actually deploy them onto Azure IoT Edge gateways and send data into IoT Central and complete that end-to-end integration. The middle one is OPC Publisher, which is a Microsoft module provided by Microsoft to run on the Azure IoT Edge runtime, which helps you connect into other partner solutions which are running as modules to be able to get the PLC data into the cloud, or the OPC Publisher can connect into OPC UA server solutions like what Kepware or Ignition or any of the partner solution provides, and finish that overall integration to be able to send telemetry or signals into IoT Central. And then the last one is the connectivity partner solutions, where there are solutions already existing on-prem at the customer sites. And if customer decides to connect into the cloud using those solutions, we have worked with these partners to be able to have connectors into IoT Central to overall simplify their journey to be able to send telemetry or signals into IoT Central. Again, just showing you the breadth of partnerships we have forged to be able to work with our customers in the industrial space to help them in the overall cloud journey.
Okay, thank you, Ranga. So what we're going to do now is take a look at some of the third parties that we're working with, some of their solutions, and see just how easy it is to connect those solutions up to IoT Central. So what you're seeing here in front of you on the screen is the CloudRAIL solution. So I have this hardware sitting on my desk right now, and we're going to connect this up to IoT Central in a minute. But let's just go through the components we have here. So on the left here, this here is the actual gateway box. So this piece is multi-home, so it's dual home to the internet on the left and your factory on the right. So any of the devices here are not directly connected to the internet for security. The box on the right here is the IO Master, Link Master, and this guy is basically the hub. And you've got your internet connected in there. It's got power, and then these 8 ports here can be connected to sensors or to things like this LED indicator light that we've got connected here. And you can have, say, up to 8 per link master, and you can have 8 of these link masters connected to a single gateway box, so giving you 64 sensors. In the middle here, below, we have a temperature and humidity sensor connected, and as I say, this is an RGB lamp, which you would typically see connected to the top of machinery to indicate, if it's green, that everything is okay, and amber and red indicating that there might be an issue with the machinery. So let's get this connected to IoT Central. So right here, I'm in the CloudRAIL management web page, and I've already gone ahead and I've added the gateway into my account here, and I've done that so I could do things like update the firmware to the latest version. But let's click into the details. So I'm in details, and I could have gone ahead and installed Azure IoT Edge, but I haven't done that. We're just going to kind of use it in its simplistic form. And right now I have no devices connected to it. So let's add a new connection. So I have a choice here of adding in either directly connected sensors like the temperature humidity sensor, or I can actually go ahead and add OPC UA servers. So initially we'll add in the directly connected sensor. So on this screen you can see the 8 ports we have, and 3 through 8 don't have anything connected to them. But the first port has this LDH292 device, which is the temperature humidity device. So I'm going to add that. So I click on that to select it, and then next step. And I'm going to do an interval here. So I'm going to say every 5 seconds, so 5,000 milliseconds, send me up the data coming off of it. Click next. At this point, I get to choose my service that I want to use. So I'm here talking to you about Azure IoT Central, so let's pick Azure IoT Central. And what I'm going to do now is I need to add in my subdomain for my IoT Central application. And now if I flip over to my application, that's the first part of the URL up here. And then the rest of the URL goes in here. And then I need to get a token. And I need an API token from IoT Central so that CloudRAIL can talk to my IoT Central application. So inside of my IoT Central application, I'm going to go down to permissions, into API tokens, and I'm going to generate a new API token. I'm going to call it CloudRAIL, and I'll give it administration so it can add devices. Click generate, and I'm going to copy that value. Paste it into here, click next, and give this a name. I'm going to call it temperature and temp and humidity. Hit create. Now it's going out, and while it's spinning here, it's adding that device into IoT Central and putting in the necessary templates to be able to understand the data that's going to come up from this device. So we're just going to give this a second to do its magic. There we go, created. So now we should be able to see the device in here. And we can see temperature humidity is connected to Azure IoT Central. If we go over to Central, close that, and go to devices, we now see that we have our temperature sensor in here, and we can go into here, and we should start seeing values show up in here. Let's go over to the raw data view, and already we've got some data coming in, and we can see that we're getting a humidity percentage, the temperature in centigrade and Fahrenheit, and then a device status coming in as well. What we should see in a minute when we refresh that, right now it's coming in as unmodeled. We're just giving the model a minute to catch up, and now we see that all this data is modeled in here. So let's flip back to our sensor here, and we're going to do something else here, and we're going to add a function to this. So one of the cool things about the gateway is it gives you some edge compute capability. So I'm going to click add function, and I've already got excuse me, I already got a function down here that I created earlier. It's called temp sensor augment. So I'm going to select that, and it's now attaching that to this sensor. So every time that interval comes around for 5 seconds and it goes to send a data, it's going to run it through this function. And this, if we go into down here to the functions, we click on our temp sensor one. It's quite simply just a little bit of JavaScript down here, and I'm doing several things in here. First off, I'm just rounding my data to fix it to 2 decimal places. So I really don't need anything more than that. And then I'm calculating 2 extra values from the humidity and the temperature data. So I've got a dew point and a heat index, and I'm adding those to the data to be sent up to IoT Central. So now if I go back over to IoT Central, I'll refresh our raw data view here. We can now see that we've got unmodeled values in here for dew point and heat index. And then it's very simple for me to kind of go over to our device template, which is already, this was the basic one, which was populated by CloudRAIL. But I can now go and in here, and I can put dew point. It's a double, which is so a float, so that's fine. And then we'll add in heat index. And again, that one's a double. I'm going to save that. Publish it. And now if we're lucky, and we'll go into temperature. We'll give it a second to push that template out. It's taking a little longer than a second, but there we go. And so now we see that dew point and heat index have been picked up and they're modeled correctly. And at that point, you could add those into the graphs in our overview and things like that. So just to show that stuff is showing up in our graphs, we can see that the temperature here is now showing up in the graphs. So that's how we've added a device connected directly there. But one of the really cool features of CloudRAIL is the ability to go and add in an OPC UA server. So if I go back to my box and say new connection, this time I'm going to add an OPC UA server. So I'm going to say, okay, connect an OPC UA to OPC UA, and I'm going to select the IP address of that. I need to tell it that, so typically these would be on a box which is running on the factory side. In this case here, because it's connected to my home network, the box is running a simulator. I have to just say, just connect to the cloud side. So I'm going to say connect now. And now I have a simulator, an OPC UA simulator that's running in Visual Studio. And there we go. So what's happened here is that CloudRAIL has gone down, is connected to my OPC UA server, and it's walked the hierarchy in the OPC UA server. And it's gone all the way down to the bottom when it finds variables, and then it's popped up one level and said, okay, that looks like it's a device. So what it's done here is found all those devices here. And if we were to look at an OPC UA Explorer here, so we have Unified Automation UA Expert. This is the data structure of my hierarchy for OPC UA. So you can see that I've got 2 factory buildings, and each of those buildings has a factory floor, several factory floors on there, and then there's a couple of machines per factory floor. And those are reflected here. So I'm just going to select one of these, say next step, and we're just going to do read. And again, we'll do an interval of every 5 seconds. And again, we're going to connect it to IoT Central. If I'd have been smarter in my earlier one, I would have hit the save credentials here and save myself a little bit of work here, because now I need to go back over to here, go into permissions, grab another API token, generate that guy, copy it into here. I'm going to call this one widget maker. Create. Again, so now what it's dynamically doing is building up a template for that data to push over to IoT Central, adding that device into IoT Central. So it's doing a fair amount of work on your behalf here, which is kind of cool, because otherwise you'd have had to gone in, interpret that data in your OPC UA server, and then build up your template and then put it up here. CloudRAIL has made this so simple. And if I go into my IoT Central application here and back to my devices, Widget Maker has shown up. And we see in the raw view here, we've got data flowing. And in a minute, these guys will all hook up into here. There's a couple of bugs in here, or limitations, which we're working with the CloudRAIL guys on. This vibration 3D is actually an OPC UA custom data structure in there, and it doesn't get interpreted correctly. But yeah, and then these are 64-bit ints, which get interpreted as two 32-bit integers in an array. but we can actually fix that. Again, you can fix that fairly straightforward by adding a function. So I wrote an OPCUA correction function, which I can select, attach it to this, and it corrects some of those issues. So what we're seeing here is just how fast and easy it is to connect CloudRAIL devices up to IoT Central. CloudRAIL has been a great partner. Their devices are super powerful in that they can easily retrofit a factory floor using their devices. You've seen how easy, you don't have to learn how to write your own templates. They provide all those for you. And it's just a great kind of ecosystem for rapidly adding automation to a factory floor. So we're going to look at next is another partner we've worked with, which is Omnio. And Omnio has a similar but different take on connecting devices. So I'm going to come over here to Omnio and log myself in. I'm in my Omnio dashboard. And earlier on today, I went through and I cleared out all the stuff I got in here. So we're starting with a blank slate here. And I've got my Omnio application here, IoT Central application. There's already a couple of devices in here. So there's a Schneider Electric device. I can go in here, and that's which right now is getting data from a device that Omnio has in their company, which is sending live data up to this application. But we're going to add another one in here. And what we're going to do is I've got another simulator running on my box here, which is a Modbus simulator. And we're going to hook up to that. So let's add a configuration. I'm going to call this Modbus. Click Add. And first thing I'm going to do is add my endpoint. And again, they support the range of different providers. But we're most interested in IoT Central today, so we're going to select that. And now it wants to know the URL of where my application is. So I'm just going to go over to my application. Control C, and add that in there. It doesn't like that slash on the end, so we remove that. And again, here's the theme, right? They want to, they need to be able to push things into your application. So they need a SAS token. So you all should be very familiar with this now. We've done it a couple of times. I go over here, I go to API tokens, I click Add New, Omnio demo. Oh, doesn't like the underscore in there. How about that? There we go. Administrator, generate that token, copy it, and paste it. So now it's doing a quick check. Can it connect up to the application? It can, and we can click Finish. So we've added Azure IoT Central as a destination for our data. Let's add a device. So in Omnio, they've got just a load of different devices in here that you can connect from. So my simulator is simulating a lens device here. So I can select lens, and specifically it's an i550 device. So I'm going to select that one, click Next. I'm going to give it a label. I'm going to call it, and it doesn't like the underscore, lens 1. The protocol it's using is Modbus TCP, so we select that. And now it needs to know the address of where that Modbus slave is. So 192.168.1.97 is the address for it. Slave ID 1. We click Next. And they know what this device is. They've already gone ahead and said, these are all the values that it can that can be pulled off of that device. We're going to take all of them, and we're going to click Finish. And with that, we've added that device into our configuration here. We're now going to do a save and deploy. And what they're doing now is they're building up a custom Docker container. So here you can see, here's that Docker command that we need to run. So I'm going to copy that. And now I'm going to go, I've got to my left here, I have a NUC device, which is running Ubuntu. And I'm going to paste in that command here, run it, and with a bit of luck, it should now, it's connecting up to the Modbus. It's starting to pull the data. And if we go over to the application here, into devices, we see that the Lens 1 device is showing up. And we can go into there, and already we're starting to see data come in. And again, it's all correctly partitioned into using the template. So you have all those values in here, which you can then use in other parts of IoT Central to define rules, to create dashboards, all great stuff. And again, super simple. It's really kind of pick, choose, add your configuration. Pull down that container, and then you can run it, and it hooks up to the device on the factory floor to gather the data, push it up to IoT Central. All right, well, one more for you. We're on a roll here. All the demos have worked, so let's try for one more. So another partner we've been working with is Opto22 and Ignition from Inductive Automation. And one of their partners is CirrusLink, that makes an Azure injector for Ignition. So Opto22, you can see the hardware on the screen here. This is their Groove Opto22, their flagship product for PLC. And the device I have here is a learning center. So it's hooked up to some sensors, a temperature sensor, it's got some buttons, potentiometer. The device kind of glued to the left here is another one of their products, which is the Rio, which is a cheaper device, which is kind of really great for kind of, again, retrofitting into factory floors. But we're focused on this guy because he's the big boy, and he runs Ignition right on the box here. So let's flip back over here. And so this is the Groove Manage. So right now I'm basically hooked up to the box via a web page, and I can manage my Ignition directly on the box here. So if I go into Ignition here, and then if I open the Ignition Edge, and I've gone up ahead and I've preloaded that stuff in there. But basically, this guy runs a whole bunch of different modules. One of the modules is this Azure injector here. So if I go into settings, and it hasn't logged me out, cool. You'll see up here that I can connect to hubs directly, to Azure IoT Edge, to event hubs directly. But one of the other ones is Azure IoT Central. And what I've done is I've already connected this guy up to my application here on Central. So if I click on Edit, you can see it takes all the standard information you'd require to connect the device to IoT Central using DPS, Device Provisioning Service. So it's my scope ID, I've given it a name, and here are the group symmetric keys. And very shortly, they should have X509 certificate support in here as well. But yeah, this is basically allows you to hook up this device, so it sends its data up to the cloud. And then if we go over to here, let's refresh this. You can see that we've got the data flowing in here. So here's a payload. The payloads here are a little tricky right now for us to ingest into IoT Central. We have a feature coming which is going to allow us to ingest this data and do more with it. But what we've gone ahead and done is use the power of our export, continuous data export, to be able to export this data out into ADX, Azure Data Explorer. So if I go down to data export here, I have two data exports. So one here is connected to a table in ADX. If I click on Edit, This is one of the new powerful features that Ranga talked about, which is data transformation, right? So if I choose my thing here, for some reason it's not showing any in the output here. But what we have in this top right-hand corner is a transformation. So it's taking the data that's coming in as telemetry, transforming it into the right format to be able to push it into an ADX table. Doesn't mean, so the value of that is you don't have to set up a VM, set up another compute device to be able to transform that data. You can transform it right inside of IoT Central to push it into the right format, whether it be going into ADX, whether you're pushing to data lake or some other storage, or if you just want to convert that data into a format to go into a specific system on that you have on your back end in Azure. So this is a very powerful feature that we've added in here. And so that data has been pushed into ADX, and then that allows us to use a feature in our dashboards to bring in external content. So this tile here is bringing an external dashboard from ADX, and you can see that we've got some nice graphs coming here for the temperature and the fuel levels over time. The current fuel level and the current temperature are displayed as the last known values, and you can do some really complex calculations in here. If you refer back to when Ranga showed the Parnell example where we calculated OEE in there, which I know is really important in the industrial IoT space. So that concludes the three demos that we wanted to show you guys today. That just illustrate that we're working with industry partners, with partners who are providing great value for your factory floor, whether it be a retrofit, whether it be starting from the beginning. And we continue to push ahead with other partners to make it as easy as possible to hook devices up to IoT Central.
Thanks for everyone for attending our session on Industrial IoT and IoT Central. Really appreciate your time and attention. If you have any questions or want any further follow-up, please reach out to us. And we have plenty of information on the web about IoT Central and what we're doing with Industrial IoT. So thanks very much.